one more team to break down here. They are the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is, insert whoever. This system is revving this Red Raiders offense, and they've got one of the premier pass rush prospects who's making a name for himself. And in recent weeks, Jacob Rodriguez, this linebacker, he has really catapulted his draft stock as well. Who do you want to talk about first?
Well, firstly, I think when you look at that offense, I mean, whether it's the quarterback, Morton, who I think has been better than I think people expected, but then you have the two receivers, Virgil and Douglas. That offense, you talk about it. It is what it is. Like they're wide open. They're putting the ball out there. These are both good receivers, both big receivers, over 6'2". I like both of them. I think the Virgil kid's got a little bit more juice to him, but I think both of them can play. The John Carlos Miller's a kid we talked about before. Not a special tight end prospect, but I think this is a kid that's going to get into a camp. I think he's going to challenge to find a way to make a roster. Both their tackles are good players, but I think they're different guys. Jados, I think, has a chance at playing at the next level. Great length at over 6'6", long arms, 34. I'm not saying he's a high-end prospect, but I think he's going to be a late-round pick. The Zambrano guy, I'm still trying to figure out where he fits. He's decent size, almost 6'5", 311, but he's got short arms. And I think NFL teams are going to get a little panicked by 31 and change arms.
Yes.
I don't think they're going to feel comfortable saying, okay, he's a tackle. And then the question becomes, do they think he's strong and powerful enough to play guard? Because of that question, I think that a player who's on film production is probably that of a late round pick, is probably going to be an undrafted free agent because teams aren't going to know exactly where he's going to fit. Defensively, I mean, you talk about a team that's loaded. Romello Height. I mean, you talk about a guy, David Bailey. These two guys coming off the edge all season. They've been causing havoc. And then you say, okay, great. They're great at defensive end and they're senior prospects. Yeah, they're also good at their interior guys. The Hunter and Gil Howard, you're about two guys that are going to get drafted. I think the Gil Howard guy, there's going to be some teams that freak out because he's under 6 feet and he's got 30-inch arms. But you know what? Somehow, some way, I really hope that kid can find a way to curl his toes or squeeze his hips or whatever he's got to do, get that extra eighth of an inch to get the 6 feet.
It'll be a hard sell.
Yeah, it is. But if he can somehow get 6 feet, teams get a little bit more calm about that. But he's a good football player. Defensively, you mentioned Rodriguez. This is a kid I think when coming into the season, you thought undersized kid, okay athlete, where does he fit? But every game this season, you see a kid that runs better than I think people thought. He's always around the ball. He's always making big plays. He, to me, has shown that he is a guy that he may not have the great testing numbers, but he is a football player through and through. This kid's going to play at the next level. The Wisniewski kid, the safety, big, long kid. I mean, you got 6'3 plus 220. He can run. Don't think he's going to be a high pick, but I think someone in that 3rd to 5th round, I think someone's going to roll the dice because he is a pretty looking kid. He can run. And they have two good corners. Balfour's probably, to me, the better of them, a little bit better in terms of measurables, over 6 feet, 190 pounds. A.J. McCarty, good size, decent. He's at 5'11", 192. But when I look at the two of them, Balfour to me is a guy that looks like an NFL corner, long, linear kid. McCarty, I'm trying to figure out where he jumps to me as a talent. I think both those guys are day 3 prospects, maybe undrafted guys, but they're good college football players. Texas Tech is loaded. They've done a great job of building a roster without recruiting guys out of high school, but finding guys that other programs maybe undervalue and getting them in through the portal.
Yeah, you mentioned Wisniewski, Cole Wisniewski from North Dakota State. Usually, if you're at North Dakota State, I would suggest, hey, just stand by. You'll be fine. You'll get recognized. But I'm kind of glad he transferred up to the Power 5 because he's making plays now all over the place. He was an all FCS standout, was a quarterback in high school, and he's got the length at 6'3" and 3/8 inches, 221 pounds. Going to test well. Obviously, very, very smart. Romello Height, I mean, he is just flying off the edge as well. Coming on, I think Bailey is the guy that came in with the hype, right? And he's lived up to it. And I think with David Bailey, you want to just see him. And he has the pass rush repertoire. Like you see him pull out the moves, the rips, the dips, the spins. I think he gets a little bit too comfortable relying on that power and that strength. And that's like his go-to is just overpower guys. And he can do that at the collegiate level. But when he gets to the next level, he's going to get washed out against some of the more developed tackles that he goes up against. So got to maintain the gap integrity against the run. But David Bailey looking like a top 20 overall type of prospect. I think Jacob Rodriguez is squarely in the day two conversation now. A little bit light, a little bit short, 6 foot, 230 pounds, but also another former quarterback, and that shows up on film as well. But NFL scouts, I think, are going to get over the size limitations. You mentioned Reginald Virgil and Caleb Douglas, two lengthy, tall, big targets who can run well, make plays. They also got the redshirt junior Corey Eakin, who's emerged as a pass threat. And you mentioned the John Carlos Miller tight end. They also have Terrence Carter, who's listed at 6'2", 232 pounds. Usually those guys, Russ, maybe have to try to convert to fullback or make a living elsewhere. And it's tough when you're a productive college player and you just lack the physical necessary requirements at the next level. These guys got kind of get lost in the mix. And I hate to say it, but he'll probably be playing in the United Football League somewhere. And then we do have to touch base on Baron Morton because I think grades are higher than people realize on this young man. And he
Yep.
did get hurt a little bit, went down, in stepped Will Hammond, and you said, oh, wow, well, maybe he's a byproduct of the system. But Morton doesn't have the prototypical size, 6'1 4/8", 205 pounds, but he just knows where to go with the football, his timing, his touch, the anticipatory skills, the experience. And he's had some big time games throughout his career. So Baron Morton, I don't think teams are going to draft him in the later rounds thinking, hey, we have a future starter here. I think they're going to draft him in the later rounds and say, hey, we might have a backup for the next decade in a Baron Martin type of prospect.
Yeah, and a backup that is going to be okay with it. He's going to be like, "Hey, this is my role. What do I have to do to make the team better?" To me, he fits that role 100% perfectly, and I think that's why he will probably be drafted higher than anybody thinks he will, because he's going to be able to fit in with no problems and be that guy. He's not going to be an ego guy who's trying to bully his way to beat out the guy. He's going to be, I think, obviously he's not going to give up and say, I don't want to ever play, but I think he's going to be a good guy in the locker room, even if he isn't the starting guy. So that's why, to me, you look at him and say, this is a guy that he's going to fit in the NFL. Whether he's a 2 or 3, I think he's got a chance to have a long career.
All right. There